Hi everyone, this is a market recap for Friday, July 31st, 2026. Um, so QQQ and the SPY both closed green today. The SPY looks particularly good. The Qs I'm unsure about, are we gapping into more supply and is this a good short opportunity? It's certainly possible. I'm really not too sure. A lot of the tech names, a lot of the semis, a lot of the DRAM names, the optics, they all kind of closed exactly like this, right into supply. And it's kind of, I'm not too sure what to make of it if we're going to continue lower. If we look at the optics again, kind of right into these declining moving averages. Um, if we look at some of the data storage names, right, WDC, right into the 50-day, is that a good short opportunity? SNDK, I still think STX looks fairly decent, kind of building out a base here, right side. A couple more weeks of this and, maybe get a potential entry. Let's see. Biotech's had a bit of a rough day today. Not something I maybe expected. I was kind of expecting some continuation, especially given the amount of biotech charts that looked pretty good. But it's just kind of a bit of a crackdown here. We hit the 50 just about on the XBI. If that means we're going to bottom anywhere, I'm not so sure. But a lot of these charts look pretty ugly now. Some of them are holding structure reasonably well. And yesterday I talked about stocks like CORT, which put in really big moves after earnings. But, if you look at a stock like INCY, right, entire move after earnings has been given back. So, how to interpret the moves on biotech, I'm not too sure. Just kind of a sector I'm just observing right now. Energy names are still doing really, really well. PBF had that insane day yesterday, but if we go through some of the oil names now, FANG, some of the tankers had nice days today. VLO and MPC are all holding in there well still. STNG and FRO still look really, really strong. I think FRO is the best looking chart in the market right now. At least that's my personal opinion. But a lot of these oil names just saw a really big day today, which is interesting to say the least. Right? If we look at crude, just kind of all following crude's movement right now. I'm still in HF Sinclair. This is building out kind of a nice flag. I'm hoping that we get some continuation here. This is a clean consolidation for now. If we go sideways another, like let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, another week or so, I would consider adding if we got another breakout on that position. The XLF, kind of a nothing day today, right? None of the financials did anything too impressive today. It's fine. I still think this looks really, really good. Restaurants, BJ's took a bit of a breather today, which is, fine. This thing has been on quite the tear. So we'll see how the other restaurant names kind of follow in the coming days. Eat is still doing just amazingly well. The Cheesecake Factory is still doing really well. So, for now, I think this is still just one of the strongest sectors, if not the strongest sector in the market. Some of the ag stocks I noticed have taken a bit of a beating today. Or not just today, or the last few days, which is unusual considering these stocks tend to move kind of with the oil names, especially given the news in Iran. Not all of them, certainly, but they do sometimes kind of follow a similar trend. But they've been really getting beat up the last few days. Beyond that, travel stocks aren't doing anything too crazy after that bigger day. Let's see, on the 28th, they're just kind of going sideways, consolidating a little bit. Viking is building out, a nice base here. Again, if we can kind of go sideways for at least another week, I consider this to be a really strong base. This thing has had, reasonable breakouts in the past. So we'll see how that goes. Healthcare names still kind of pulling back a little bit. I still think they look fine overall. Lilly held the 50-day. Earnings are in, a few days, so we'll see. I think that'll be the real determining factor with what the XLV does. But this is still just a reasonable consolidation in my opinion. Nothing too like nothing too crazy about that. Really, I think that the today's just kind of a wait and see type of day, especially if you're a long-sided trader. I think I do wonder if there were several short opportunities today, into these declining moving averages, especially like on the optic stocks, like right into the 20-day, for most of these. And so, but otherwise, it could be kind of just like a bait in a way. And we could see a follow through day in the next few days. If we got a gap up even further, that could be awesome. This did get bought up reasonably well. We're still closing green on the day on the tech stocks. A bit of a gap down in the after hours, right? We're trading at about 684, but nothing too insane. But so I'm really just not too sure how to read what the next few days are going to be like. I do think there could have been some opportunities potentially again if you're trading to the short side, but for me there's not too much. Oh, software. I forgot to talk about software yesterday. Um, this is again it's one of the stronger sectors in the market. Obviously, we had a breakout on Snow on the 29th. I actually decided not to trade this. Um, I just couldn't really. I don't know. Like I didn't love what the Qs were doing, and this was kind of the confirmation trade. Like this was the first of the software names breaking out, and I just wasn't super confident. Um, in hindsight, it looks reasonably good so far. Yesterday had a really nice close. Um, Today kind of closed a bit weak, so we'll see what happens in the following days. But this was a trade that I kind of left. Whether that was the right decision, I don't know. But you know, really, what I'm kind of waiting for now is confirmation from Snow. If this thing can hold its breakout and have some continuation, I think D-Dog is setting up a really nice base. If we can get a pullback into you know this 252 250 level, I would be a buyer. Although I have to say, I'm probably not going to do anything until earnings come out on the 5th or on the 6th. So, ideally, we just continue sideways until earnings. And then if earnings are strong and we get a gap up, over 300 and a washout below it and a reclaim of 300, that would be like a picture perfect buy, in my opinion. Um, so really, this is just one I'm watching right now until earnings. I really would like to see some more clean sideways consolidation and then a gap up and a washout. And if that happens, I will definitely buy D-Dog, especially if we are getting some continuation on a stock like Snowflake. Um, but as far as my positions now, nothing really to write home about in most of these stocks. Took MT yesterday, kind of a nothing day today. Well, not nothing day. It's a little bit more of a push. I'm in PNC. I have PNC from yesterday's low, really, really tiny position. Um, I'd consider adding over this 252 level, and if the XLF is kind of pushing away. Um, it's kind of an expensive stock, so I don't anticipate I'd trade much of this, but don't mind taking a starter position on it. Um, Brinker International is still definitely the strongest stock in my portfolio, aside from maybe Dino, but this is doing really, really well, and pretty happy to see earnings are not for a little while, so um, nothing, in the immediate future. I'm particularly interested to see how MT behaves around the 7270 level or 7260 level. I hope we don't get more sideways before breaking out, but it is certainly possible. Either way, I'm in it. I have a reasonably low entry, and I can hold through some consolidation. um, the steel names again, kind of the same situation as yesterday. They're just kind of going sideways. Nothing They're not doing anything wrong per se, but they're not showing huge amounts of strength yet. Aside from MT, I would say, although volume on MT is a little lighter than I would like. Um, but besides that, watch list for tomorrow um, really is just FRO. If we can get over this, essentially $40 level, um, I'd definitely be a buyer. I think this is a really, really clean chart. And before I wasn't super confident because there wasn't like a super clean level in my opinion. But after today, I think the level is pretty much decided on, which is this kind of 38.980 level. So I definitely consider buying into that. And so aside from FRO, and then there's a couple other bases like I mentioned. DDOG is forming a nice base. HPE is still forming a nice base. Um, Dell is still forming a reasonably nice base, although I have to say I think HPE looks a lot better. Um, this is still not a trade I would take yet. I still think this needs more sideways. But if we can get another few days of sideways and then a break over this level could be pretty good on HPE. But purely for tomorrow's sake, there's only one stock on my watch, and that would be FRO. And then again, DDOG after earnings, Viking with a little more sideways, um, and HPE with a little more sideways. And then potentially STX with a little more sideways. This is kind of an ugly chart for now. But again, this thing needs like at least another week or two, in my opinion. But yeah, so just FRO, that's all I'm really watching. Some of the other tankers look pretty good too. Let's see, I think I might have one or two other tankers in my watch list somewhere. Let me find it. Let me find it. Um, maybe not. But either way, I think tankers look good. So FRO is what I'm looking at. Um, and besides that, that's all I have. I'm really curious to see what we do tomorrow. Is this continuation to the downside, or is this another gap up tomorrow into a washout and then, into the 50-day and then potentially fall through day? Who knows? Do we get the rally or do we just continue back down? I'm not too sure. Again, I still think there's a lack of real clean bases in the market, especially in the tech space. So purely based on that, I would say probably need more sideways across the board, and maybe more chop in the cues, which is reasonable, to think, but I don't know. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching.